I'm going to show you my top 15 hidden tips for Metaphor ReFantazio to help make your playthrough as smooth as possible. Now, the first is going to help you research different archetypes that you don't necessarily have unlocked yet. So right here I have two archetypes for the mage that I don't have unlocked yet, but if I hit triangle or this detail section in the bottom right for those of you not on PlayStation, I can hop in here, and even though I can't see the archetype, I can see all of the skills that this archetype has and the synthesis abilities. So this is something that you can take advantage of when planning your team or deciding which archetypes you want to invest in. Now, since the game just released, there's not a lot of resources on what all the archetypes are and what they do just yet. So if you want to take this tip even further, you really can save scum. So save your game, invest your hero's fruits or your hero's leaf of light to level up an archetype that you're probably not going to use. You can master that, unlock it, and then once you unlock it, I think I've done this with Hulkenberg. Once I've unlocked this archetype, now I can see the final forms of those archetypes. And let's say, for instance, I didn't plan to use this archetype, I can just delete the game or close the game, force close it, load it up again, and I can do the same with the next archetype to keep fleshing out which archetypes I want to invest deeply in. So this is a nice way to preview what there is to come without necessarily fully investing in it and wasting your resources if you don't want to use it just to try it out. The next tip is going to be you need to be taking advantage of these bargain and these sales days when you're buying your big items to save money. These are going to happen every Idols Day, and sometimes they'll have special discounts for special shops. But to take this tip even further, if you invest in the Brigitte social link, you're going to be able to get an even bigger discount. So right now it's just a random day of the week, and I can see that she's going to help me with the prices. And so I'm going to be able to get a discount every day of the week that's 20%. But if I wait until Idols Day, I'm going to get a 40% discount on all of my items. These do stack. And she also unlocks other things in the Igniter shop, such as stronger igniters to equip as accessories. So since I've invested in her, I can buy this Igniter, which is a AoE multi-target win skill. And as I keep investing in her, I'm going to get more and more different and better Igniters to go in this shop. I think these are the next wave where I can do a AoE strength increase for my party with this specific Igniter. So Brigitte comes with a lot of different perks. And if you just need money, maybe you don't have enough money to buy any of these Igniters even when they're on sale, you're not poor, you just haven't clicked the sell tab. I know with a lot of JRPGs, people don't like to sell items because you don't know what you're going to need later. But with Metaphor ReFantazio, there's items that are literally just there for you to sell. So right now I only have 55k, but I can sell all of these. Boom. I just got way more money. And now if there's another, like if you need more money to buy something bigger, you can take this. And if you've already invested in Brigitte, that leads to our next tip. You're going to unlock the merchant archetype, which is going to be how you're able to farm money. So to unlock the merchant, you have to do the social link with Brigitte and clear the optional dungeon to unlock her. And once you do, you're going to be able to get the merchant archetype as well as invest more to get the discounts that I mentioned in the last tip. Now with the merchant archetype, we have the hero passive, which gives you a small chance of winning money every time you stun or defeat an enemy in overworld combat. Now a lot of people recommend you go to the Tradia Desert because all of the mobs you can pretty much one tap at a certain level. But just keep this in mind even when you're in dungeons or doing bounties that you're over leveled for. As long as you can kill the mob in the overworld, you can farm money if you have the merchant class equipped. Now, another thing that you can do to take this step even further, I feel like I said that for the last 3 tips, but another thing you can do is you can go to Academia in a dungeon, and when you come back, it's going to reset the mob and reset all of the trash mobs around there. So you can find a route to farm all of the trash mobs, go to Academia, come out and continuously do that so that way you can stack up money and you don't necessarily have to deviate anything from your quest because you're already going to be in that dungeon for the main story or a bounty. I know by going to Tradia Desert, I believe it makes you waste a day, especially if you're not going there to do anything specifically. We spoke about the Academia reset in the last tip, which is a good segue to this one, and that's going to be everyone needs to have the mage class unlocked for your main character. With this hero passive, you're going to be able to gain 1 MP for every mob that you stun or defeat in the overworld. So as you're attempting to do things like clear dungeons in a single day without having to leave and waste multiple days, this is going to be something that you must do to maintain your MP. Pretty much every dungeon that I've been in so far has a nice set of trash mobs that are strategically placed next to a spot where you can go to Academia. So you can continuously do the same Academia reset that I mentioned in the last tip to make sure that those trash mobs continue populating, and that way you can clear them to regain your mana back quickly. Well, quickly is probably not the best way to put it, but you can regain your mana back to continue progressing in that dungeon, or if you're just farming, trying to grind out some levels, that way you don't have to keep leaving to regain your MP. So make sure that you have the mage and you swap to it when you need to get back some mana to keep progressing. If you haven't already though, I really would appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and help me get this video to 100 likes. I plan to release a few more Metaphor ReFantazio guides, and doing that lets me know that you like this type of content, but let's get back to the rest of the tips. The next tip I have for you guys is make sure that you're taking advantage of these synthesis abilities, because a lot of these are the strongest attacks within the game. For instance, we have Bamboo Splitter, which is the one that I've been taking a ton of advantage of, and every time I kill an enemy with this ability or synthesis skill, I'm going to get an additional turn icon. But I mentioned in the first tip you can kind of preview the different stats that you get on characters, and so you can hop in here and see what synthesis abilities you're going to be able to unlock if you invest in that archetype, and then what characters you need to carry on the team to activate that synthesis. So to familiarize myself with the game, I really went through every single archetype, looked at their synthesis abilities, and decided which ones are going to be worth investing in and finding a slot within my team. Because most of the time, these are going to give you access to skills that your regular skills with the regular archetype aren't going to be able to touch in comparison to the damage you'll get for a synthesis ability. Now, tip number 7, they don't really explain unless you go into this church on your own, but this is the location, and if we go into the St. Fermis Church, we're actually going to be able to do things to increase the strengths of our items, as well as give them different abilities. And so if we go to the shop, we speak to him, we're going to be able to purify our items. And purifying your items, you're going to get these specific required materials from clearing dungeons. But when you purify your item, it's going to do things like increase the attack and give it an additional effect. So this is one that I've been saving to do for when I did this video. But if I purify this item, it's going to take the attack from 160 to 200, and then it's also going to give it the effect. Well, this one doesn't have the effect, but for instance, this jacket, it gives it the effect to reduce damage from being hit on my weakness. So this is a significant increase when it comes to my durability on my character by being able to cover myself if I get hit for a weakness. But I'm going to go ahead and do this now because this is going to be a massive attack increase on the damage when it comes to my Hulkenbergs with this slab. To piggyback off that tip as well, you're going to be able to appraise different items that you find within dungeons, and so appraise them is going to allow them to become equipable. So instead of spending money buying things to see if any of them are going to be viable or useful for you to use, and the appraisal to do these is relatively cheap, so I'd recommend appraising pretty much all the items once you leave a dungeon to see what you got. I only have so many because I was saving them to make sure I had examples for this specific video. Tip number 7 is going to be make sure that you get your positioning on point. So if you know you're going to be blocking, you don't need to be in the front row. Just move to the back row so you can get the extra defensive increase. Or if you're going to be doing something like buffing an ally or debuffing the enemy, just make sure that you're hopping to the back row when you do that so you can take advantage of the extra defense that it gives you for being in the back row. The next 2 tips are going to be mainly geared towards combat. But the first one is going to be make sure that you're taking advantage of buffs and debuffs. These are an easy way to make clearing things that are significantly hard much easier. I feel like when playing JRPGs, it's kind of easy to focus on just doing the attack dealing skills, and a lot of people don't take time to focus on buffs and debuffs. But in Atlas games like Persona or Shin Megami Tensei, these are very strong, and it's no different for Metaphor ReFantazio. Now, these buffs are all stackable up to 3 different times. And some ones that I recommend are going to be Tarukaja, which you can get from the Secret pretty early, which is going to increase one ally's attack for 3 turns. There's also an ability with the Commander archetype that moves all of your units to the front, and then it boosts their attack by 2 ranks for up to 3 turns. So I recommend that one as well. And the other one that I recommend is going to be the one that decreases the defense. I don't know which archetype that's attached to. I believe it's the Faker, but I believe the Commander is going to be the strongest of all of them because you only have to use that ability twice, and you're going to be able to get your entire party strength maxed out at 3. The next combat tip I have is going to be make sure that you're taking advantage of elemental items that you can use and igniters. During the nighttime, you're going to be able to come to this shop and buy these items, and I always make sure I keep a hefty stock of every elemental item, so that way if I'm fighting an enemy, I can pretty much guarantee myself up to 6 turns by exploiting their weakness, and being able to do 100 additional damage because you're taking advantage of that weakness is going to go very far in the early to mid game. And then, like I mentioned earlier, with the Brigetta social link, you're going to be able to get access to stronger igniters in the shop and a bigger discount, 40% off. So if they look expensive, just know that they come even more discounted on Idols Day. We're going to be able to get access to stronger items. And so we can get this where we can deal multi-target dark skill damage. And that's pretty much the same for every element. So if I'm going into a dungeon and I know that they're going to have a weakness to, let's say, thunder, I can just bring this and take advantage of that weakness. Now, they do cost more MP than just using an item, but they're also not capped out in damage when it comes to only being able to do 100 damage like the other items that you get from the shop that I mentioned before this one. Now, I don't have it unlocked yet, but I do know that there's another tier with Brigetta to bring even stronger igniters into this shop, which is going to make this tip even more worthwhile for invested into her social link. This tip is going to be a pretty quick hit, but the game makes it seem like you have to invest your stat when you level up, and you actually don't. If you just hit X and next through it, you don't have to invest those points. So I recommend doing that until you know exactly which type of build you want to play and you get more familiar with the game. So that way you don't invest all of these extra stat points that you get in a thing that's not going to be relevant once you actually figure out which archetype you want to use. I've been going straight strength, so I recommend strength. But I just want to make it known that even though it may seem like you have to invest those stats when you level up, you can't actually stack them and save them. Tip number 12 mainly focuses on time management. We know that we have the Persona formula, so the calendar system is going to be a big impact on your playthrough, and making sure that you're taking advantage of everything and not wasting time is going to be a massive increase when it comes to your playthrough. So a few things that I recommend is make sure that you pick up all of the side quests, all of the bounties, and do everything in the city before you begin exploring. Because at times you're going to be able to hit 2 birds in 1 stone and maybe hit a bounty and a side quest by going out at the same time and having all of them unlocked. So that way you don't have to do it twice or miss out on the extra stats or rewards that you get from clearing a side quest because you didn't pick it up in time and you don't want to go back. Now, to build on to this specific tip, I really recommend using a walkthrough. I'll post one in the description down below that I've been using, but using a walkthrough to make sure that you get the right answers for the virtues. I'm not necessarily saying do everything they say on the exact day that they say, but I'm saying take advantage of having the information to choose the right answer, because if you choose the wrong answer, you're going to get less points to your royal virtue stats. So choosing the right answer becomes even more significant because it could be the difference between getting 4 coins and getting 2 coins. And so to do that, I've just been taking advantage of this specific walkthrough. We know that in Persona games, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be gated based on your virtues. And I've already ran into 4 different ones where I didn't have the right stats to take on that quest at the time. So I had to catch up by investing in that virtue, where if I took advantage of the walkthrough and make sure that I was hitting it and getting the max points every time, I may not have had to waste a few days to catch up to unlock that specific quest. The next 3 tips are going to be pretty much quick hits, so I'm going to put all of their title cards together and probably separate them by timestamps. But the first one is going to be party members don't get XP if they're dead. So if you're about to clear a boss fight and you know that you can survive another turn, make sure that you're reviving all party members so that way they get the XP for clearing the boss. And then in the late game, when you have all of the party members unlocked, the characters that are actively fighting when combat is finished are going to be the ones that get the most XP. So the ones that are going to be sidelined waiting to be swapped in are going to get a little bit less EXP. So make sure that you're investing in the characters that you want to level up and having them fighting and making sure they're alive when you clear the boss. Tip number 14 is going to be make sure that you're looting all of the chests when you're in dungeons or optional dungeons or bounties, because they are actually dropping pretty strong items to save you money from having to buy them within the shop. I know that in some games, looting chests just give random things like potions that you're probably never going to use. But with Metaphor ReFantazio, they're giving strong gear and strong weapons, and they actually show up on the map when you highlight it, so that way you don't really have to go digging to see where they are. You see where they're at on the map, you just have to figure out how to get to them. So that makes getting all the chests in a dungeon pretty easy because you know how many they're going to be. Tip number 15 goes as a no-brainer, but you want to make sure that you're clearing all dungeons, bounties, or optional dungeons in one day, so that way you can save as much time as possible to invest in your royal virtues and hit other quests. The last tip that I have for you guys is make sure that you're enjoying your time with the game and not being so focused on trying to min-max everything or rush through it. This is going to be an 80+ hour JRPG, and you're gonna get burnt out if you try and play the game that way. My experience with Persona is that when I attempted to min and max everything, I wasn't having as much fun as I did when I attempted to answer the questions the way that I would in real life, or invest in the social links that I thought were compelling and interesting, as opposed to investing in the social links that YouTubers told me to because they give you the maximum perks or benefits. I think tip number 16 is the best of them all, because at the end of the day, it's nighttime, and we're all here just to have fun playing a fun game, and this is one that you're really going to want to savor and enjoy. So these are my 16 hidden tips and tricks for Metaphor ReFantazio, but if you want to learn how to get OP and super strong in the early game, I'll have that video linked right here for you to check out. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you in the next one.